Ever get that feeling in school? Like you knew you should ask more questions, but just couldn't.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like this weird mix of curiosity and fear, right?
Yeah.
Well, turns out we're not alone. Today we're diving into empowering students as questioners.
By Jackie Walsh.
Exactly. Now this book,
It's got teachers talking, that's for sure.
it really has, and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's not just some theoretical fluff,
No, not at all.
It gets down to the nitty-gritty of why student questions matter and, more importantly, how to make them happen.
It's practical, which teachers really need.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Why is this whole students asking questions thing such a big deal?
Well, think about it. When students ask questions, they're not just soaking up information like a sponge.
Right.
They're actively wrestling with it, digging deeper.
Making it their own.
Exactly. And that's when the real learning kicks in.
And the book really highlights this with stories from real classrooms. Like Sarah Men, an instructional coach.
Right, Sarah Min.
She talks about this classroom she observed, and the students were hesitant at first.
As they often are.
But as they started asking more questions, their engagement, their academic performance,
Everything just shot up.
it's amazing what a few well-placed questions can do.
It really is. And it's not just anecdotal either. The book dives into the research like Mary Bud Rowe's work.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, she found this direct link between how much students asked questions and, get this, wait time.
Wait time, interesting. So, like those awkward silences after a teacher asks a question.
Exactly. Those silences are actually golden opportunities.
It's funny because as a student, those silences felt like an eternity.
Oh, I know. But for students, those few seconds
To gather their thoughts.
to get the courage to actually speak up.
It's like we're shifting the entire classroom dynamic. It's not just the teacher asking all the questions anymore.
Right. It's about creating that questioning mind frame, and that goes for teachers too.
Okay, I like that. So how do we actually cultivate that kind of culture in the classroom?
Well, Walsh gives us this great framework. Imagine it, model it, name it.
Catchy. I like it. So imagine it. What does that look like practically?
Basically, teachers envisioning their dream classroom. But it's not just about the content, It's about how they want students to feel. What would it look like if kids felt safe to ask anything?
And then you model it.
Exactly. Show them what a questioning mind looks like in action. Think alouds are great for this.
So like thinking out loud as you're reading a text or something.
Exactly. Let them in on your thought process, even your moments of confusion.
Showing them it's okay not to have all the answers.
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And lastly, name it.
Right, so what does that mean?
Make it explicit. Create classroom norms that value questions, like a question parking lot,
I love that.
or even a simple I wonder routine.
It's about making curiosity a habit.
Hmm?
The book mentions this teacher, Tracy Ray,
Oh, yeah, Tracy Ray.
3rd grade, and she used this whole I must ask a question theme.
So creative.
It's amazing how a little fun can make a big difference. But it's not just about any questions, right?
Right.
Walsh dives into different types of questions. Self-questions, academic questions, exploratory questions,
Biologic question.
a whole buffet of questions. But what do these different types actually look like in a real classroom? And how can we use this knowledge to help our students become better question askers?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll definitely unpack further. So self-questioning, it's like giving students the superpower.
The power. Okay, I like that.
It's like they're taking charge of their own learning.
Instead of just waiting for the teacher to tell them what to think.
Exactly. And there are actually different types of self-questions. You've got your self-regulation questions.
Self-regulation, so that's like, am I on the right track here?
Exactly. Checking your understanding as you go. But then you have these meaning-making self-questions. They're deeper.
Okay, so give me an example. Let's say you're reading about photosynthesis.
Okay, sure.
A self-regulation question might be like, do I know the steps? But a meaning-making question would be more like,
How does this connect to the food chain?
yes, it's about those connections. And the cool thing is,
The research on this is amazing.
really,
We're talking a big impact on student achievement. Like the book mentions an effect size of 0.64.
wow. And just remind me, what does effect size even mean?
It's basically a way to measure how much of a difference something makes. So 0.64, that's huge.
So just by teaching students to ask themselves better questions,
They can make huge leaps in their learning.
that's incredible.
It really is. And this is where those think alouds come in. Like Jennifer Patterson.
The 2nd grade teacher.
Yeah. She'll be reading with her students and she'll just stop and be like, I wonder why the author used that word.
She's modeling that inner monologue.
Exactly. And the kids see that it's okay to not understand everything immediately.
It's so important. Okay, so we've got self-questions. What about academic questions?
Those are all about going deeper into the actual content.
Like the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, exactly. So in history, it might be something like, what were the real causes of the American Revolution?
It's about pushing beyond the textbook, right?
Exactly. And what's cool is, even with these academic questions, there's still room for students to come up with their own.
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, the book mentions this geometry teacher,
Jared Moore.
right, Jared Moore. He has his students write down questions they still have at the end of each lesson.
As exit tickets.
And then he uses those questions to plan his next lesson.
It's like using student questions as a roadmap.
I love that. Okay, now for the really fun ones, the exploratory questions,
Ah, yes. These are the questions that come from pure curiosity.
ones that keep you up at night.
Exactly. Like, why is the sky blue? Or how do birds fly? It's about wanting to understand the world around us.
It's that sense of wonder we want to nurture in our students.
And the book gives some great examples of how to do that, like Stephanie Hendricks, the 6th grade teacher.
Yeah, what did she do?
She uses all these cool protocols and even historical artifacts to get her students curious. Like, she'll bring in a real World War II artifact.
Wow, that's amazing.
And suddenly the students are asking all these questions, wanting to know more.
It's about creating those I wonder moments.
Exactly. And sometimes the best learning experiences are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
So true. Okay, one more type of question to go.
Mhm.
Dialogic questions.
These are all about those rich conversations, you know?
Challenging each other's thinking.
Exactly. It's about respecting different viewpoints.
Learning how to disagree respectfully.
Exactly. And the book talks about this cool strategy called interview design. Basically, students become interviewers, asking each other thoughtful questions.
It's like they're having a conversation with a purpose.
And through that process, they learn to listen, to empathize, to see things from different angles.
So we've got these 4 powerful question types. Self-questions, academic questions, exploratory questions, and dialogic questions. That's amazing. But knowing the types is just the beginning. How do we actually help our students put these into practice?
Well, don't worry, the book doesn't leave us hanging. It goes on to give us a ton of practical tools and strategies to use in our classrooms.
It's almost like we're uncovering this hidden language of learning. You know, these different question types, they're like the building blocks of deeper understanding.
They really are. But you're right, it does make you wonder, if these skills are so powerful, why aren't we seeing more of them in classrooms?
Right, like what's holding us back?
Well, I think part of it is tradition, you know?
Hmm.
We're so used to that model of the teacher as the sage on the stage, the one with all the answers.
Yeah, it's like we're fighting against years of ingrained habits, both for teachers and students.
Exactly. And then there's always that pressure of time, the curriculum to get through, the tests to prepare for.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, we don't have time for questions, we have to move on.
But what this book shows us is that when we make time for questions, we're not wasting time, we're maximizing it.
Because those questions, even the ones that seem a little off topic,
They can lead to those aha moments, those connections we didn't even see coming.
I love that. It's about trusting the process, trusting that even if we don't have all the answers right away, those questions will lead us to a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And let's not forget that fear factor. Some students, especially if they haven't felt safe to ask questions in the past, they might be hesitant to speak up.
So true. It's about creating that culture of safety, that sense that no question is a stupid question.
Exactly. And remember, celebrating those aha moments, no matter how small, can make a world of difference. The book gives this great example of Cade Summers, a 10th grade English teacher.
Oh yeah, what did he do?
He noticed his students were struggling to give each other feedback on their writing, so he came up with this simple protocol. Praise question Polish.
Catchy. I like it. How does it work?
So first, they have to say something they liked about the writing, then ask a clarifying question, and finally, offer a suggestion.
It's like giving them a structure for those conversations, which
Yes.
can be so helpful.
Exactly, and it creates this really supportive environment where students feel comfortable both giving and receiving feedback.
It all comes back to creating that space
Yeah.
where questions are valued, encouraged, celebrated even.
Exactly, because ultimately, that's what this book is all about, empowering students to become active learners, not passive recipients of information.
To embrace those questions, even the messy ones, because that's where the real learning happens.
Yeah.
And, I think that's something we can all benefit from, whether we're teachers, students, or just lifelong learners navigating this big, complex world.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, what questions are swirling around in your head right now? What are you curious about? Don't be afraid to ask.
That's the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a thought-provoking conversation, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to go out there and ask some more questions.